Welcome to the 2018 NJJLL Rules PowerPoint video. There are three primary documents used by the NJJLL as far as game rules interpretation. The first and primary document is the 2018 National Federation of High School Sports Boys Lacrosse Rulebook. The second document is the 2018 U.S. Lacrosse Youth Boys Rulebook. And then the final document is the document created by the NJJLL, which is the 2018 NJJLL Rule Amendments. The 2018 Rule Amendments can be found on our website at njlacrosse.com. You should be familiar with the rules indicated in all three of these documents. To be able to interpret the rules from the U.S. Lacrosse Youth Rulebook, it's important for you to understand how they apply to the NJJLL. U.S. Lacrosse applies its rules using the U level, U14, U12, and U10. The NJJLL, however, we play using grade levels, 8th through 3rd grade. So when looking at the Youth Lacrosse Rulebook issued by the U.S. Lacrosse, you need to understand that 7th and 8th grade plays by the U14 rules. 5th and 6th grade play by the U12 rules, and 3rd and 4th grade play by the U10 rules. As for 2017 and 2018, there is an age maximum per grade level. So it's important for coaches and program directors to look at their rosters and make sure that players eligible at each individual grade level also meet the age maximum. For the purposes of the NJJLL, we don't recognize multiple grade level teams. For example, if a team is combined of 5th and 6th graders, the NJJLL considers that a 6th grade team. Similarly, if it's combined of 7th and 8th graders, it is considered an 8th grade team for the purpose of the NJJLL. So you need to look at your rosters and make sure that all players are appropriately age eligible. Let's review some points of emphasis. Violent collisions. Some body contact is permitted at all levels of boys youth lacrosse, with progressively more age-appropriate contact permitted as players become more physically mature and learn proper checking techniques. However, sports medicine research indicates that the severity of certain injuries may be reduced if a player can anticipate and prepare himself for an oncoming hit. And other sports medicine research indicates that peripheral vision may not be fully developed in many boys before approximately age 15. Therefore, there is no justification for deliberate and violent collision by any player at any youth level, especially intentional player-to-player collisions with defenseless players, so-called blindside and buddy pass checks, and checks involving the head and or neck, and excessive body checks or takeout checks. The best way to describe what contact is allowed in the 7th and 8th grade levels where there is limited body checking allowed is this. If it's a big hit, it's illegal. There's really no other way to describe it. No matter how technically correct the hit is applied, by definition, if it is a big hit, it is an illegal hit. Keeping that in mind will help protect the safety of all of our youth players. Coaches and officials are encouraged to not only teach proper technique, but to discourage the large hits in any youth lacrosse game. Sportsmanship. Players, coaches, officials, and spectators should exhibit the highest levels of sportsmanship and congeniality at all times. Coaches, officials, and spectators are all partners in providing the best possible experience for youth players. Unsportsmanlike conduct by coaches, players, or spectators degrades the experience of youth players and discourages people from becoming or continuing as officials or coaches. This behavior erodes the integrity and appeal of our sport. Therefore, unsportsmanlike conduct should not be tolerated. U.S. Lacrosse expects officials to enforce unsportsmanlike conduct rules without hesitation. In particular, Coaches must support officials in maintaining an environment of good sportsmanship. Body checking is not allowed 6th grade and below. A player may not deliver a body check to an opponent. Allowable body contact at these levels are legal holds, legal pushes, the use of equal pressure against an opponent to gain possession of a loose ball, defensive positioning to redirect an opponent in possession of the ball, and contact deemed incidental by officials. So, here's what that means. It means that they're not allowed to body check, but it does not mean that there is no body contact allowed. For example, if an offensive player is running up a sideline, it is permissible for a player to push him out of bounds, as long as he doesn't use more force than what was necessary to get him out of bounds. Things like playing man ball and boxing out are still permitted at all grade levels, as long as it is not done with contact with the intent to deliver a body check. Illegal stick checking, slashing, and cross-checking. Any stick checks that are not to a player's cross or hands of a player that is in possession of the ball is considered a slash or a cross-check. Officials are expected to enforce this rule. Here's something that's important to understand about slashing. Even a check properly delivered to the gloved hand or the stick of an opponent can be a slash if the strike was with such force that it could be considered dangerous. So it is illegal for players to swing with excessive force to where it could create an injury to the other player. Another thing to understand about slashing is a slash can be called if a player swings violently but never even makes contact, if in the opinion of the official it was a reckless swing and possibly endangered players. Another point of emphasis about the coaches and the team area. At U12 and U14, which for us would be 6th grade and below and 8th grade and below, the only time a coach is allowed to enter the lacrosse field is to attend to an injured player, to warm up a goalkeeper, or during halftime. If a coach is on the field of play during a live ball or dead ball for any other instance, and the coach does not have permission from an official, it is considered a foul. Officials are encouraged to enforce this rule to keep coaches restricted to the sideline and coaches' area during live play, during timeouts, and between quarters. It's important for coaches to understand they're not allowed to wander onto the field, they're not allowed to go into the penalty box, and they're certainly not allowed to go down near goal line extended on their own sideline. This is a quick reference chart as far as the length of sticks that are legal for 2018. It's important to note that 5th through 8th grade, we are using high school rules as far as the stick length. We're going to address the head of the stick in a future slide. 3rd and 4th grade, there are notes here that the shortest allowable stick on the field can be no shorter than 37 inches. And as in the past years, we do not permit coaches in the NJJLL to request stick checks. So keep that in mind. Only an official can institute a stick check at any level in the NJJLL. A change back for 2018 in grades 5 through 8, 4 long poles are again allowed on the field. For grades 3 and 4, no long poles are permitted on the field. Let's review the rule changes from 2017. Starting in 2017, the NJJLL made 7v7 games optional. All 7v7 games must be played on a short-sided field. You'll be one official on the game. And it is important to understand that 10v10 games are still optional at the 3rd grade level also. 4th grade and above, all games will be played 10v10. In 2017, it was no longer legal for coaches to be on the fields for the 3rd and 4th grade games. Coaches are permitted, with the permission of both head coaches, to spread out along the entire sideline so that you do have a coach available down in the defensive end and a coach available down on the offensive end to be able to communicate with the players. Again, this requires the consent of both teams' head coaches. Elbow pads were no longer required for youth goaltenders. This was a very major change last year. Any player who accumulates 3 personal fouls or 5 minutes in personal foul time has fouled out. Officials will be keeping track of the jersey numbers of players who accumulate personal fouls. Personal fouls, again, are the fouls that have a safety factor involved: cross-checking, slashing, tripping, and so on. This does not apply to holding and pushing or any of the 30-second technical fouls. A mouthpiece violation is now a technical foul. Prior to 2017, a mouthpiece violation was a 1-minute non-releasable penalty. In order to encourage officials to make this call more often, the foul was downgraded to a technical foul. The most common violation found is the players do not put the mouthpiece completely in their mouth, or they do what is commonly referred to as fish hooking, where the mouthpiece is half in and half out of their mouth. Officials should communicate with players in violation, and if a player does not make the correction or continually makes the same mistake, the foul must be called. This is a safety issue for the players. Over and back is only applied in 7th and 8th grade only. 7th and 8th grade is the only level where we use the 20-second clearing count and the 10-second get it in count, and as such, over and back would only apply in 7th and 8th grade. This was another major rule change for 2017. 6th grade and below, the only legal stick checks are poke checks, lift checks, and downward checks that are initiated below the shoulder of the shorter of the 2 players. So what does that really mean? Any slap checks or swinging checks in 6th grade below are considered illegal. Any checks where a player reaches up over his head to come down with his cross in an effort to check another player is also now considered illegal. Officials are encouraged to communicate with the players that are in violation to attempt to get compliance. It's also important that the coaches, when they observe one of their players in violation, they communicate with their players to try to get compliance. That makes it less necessary for the officials to throw the flag for this foul. Only a goalie can be in the crease for the purpose of stopping a shot. This is a safety issue. If the goalie has left the crease, a player goes in there that does not have a throat protector or a chest protector, can obviously be injured by the ball. Keep it in for the last 2 minutes only if there is less than a 5-goal lead. What this means is if there's a 4-goal lead, there is still a requirement by the team ahead to keep it in. But once there is a 5-goal difference in the game, the winning team is no longer required to keep it in the last 2 minutes of the game. So let's talk about some of our new 2018 rules. For 2018, raking the ball is now again legal in 3rd and 4th grades. For 2018, any stick to helmet contact is considered a slash. So the brush call has been primarily removed from youth lacrosse. This call will still have some referee discretion involved, but this is a major rule change for 2018. When there's a flag down, the team in possession is no longer required to keep it in the box. This is perhaps the largest rule change for 2018. Teams can be called for unsportsmanlike conduct for the conduct of a parent or spectator. So here's how that works. Should officials determine that there is conduct from the crowd that is unsportsmanlike, play shall be stopped. The officials will approach the head coach from the team involved. This could be the home team or the visiting team, depending on whose spectators or parents are the offenders. The coach should be given an opportunity to address his parents and spectators to get compliance. After that opportunity has been given and play is restarted, if the conduct from the fans continues, the team can be penalized for unsportsmanlike conduct. This does not in any way limit the ability of a referee to eject a player, a parent, fan, or spectator for unsportsmanlike conduct. Some other NJJLL rules. We have a 4-coach maximum on the sidelines, and only head coaches may communicate with game officials. We do not allow one-handed checks at any level. Substitution horns are allowed in 3rd through 6th grade if the ball goes out of bounds. So that's important to understand. 6th grade and below, where the games are all running time, a coach can request a horn for the purpose of substitution anytime the ball goes out of bounds. What they cannot do is request a horn when there's a push call on the field, a hold call on the field, or any other call on the field that would have entitled the other team to a fast restart. If a coach makes this mistake and calls for a horn when they're not entitled to one because the ball did not go out of bounds, the coach will be given a warning the first time, and then repeated violations will be met with delay of game calls. We have a 6-goal mercy rule at all levels. Coaches may not request stick checks. All stick checks will be initiated by the referees. Officials shall perform 2 random stick checks per game for 6th grade games and up, and they have the ability to check sticks at any level should they deem necessary. For 3rd grade through 6th grade games are all 4 12-minute running time quarters with no overtime. For all the running time games, stop time is played for the last 2 minutes if it is a 1-goal game. So it's important to understand that if any time during that last 2 minutes of a 1-goal game, somebody scores and the game becomes tied, or somebody scores and it becomes a 2-goal game, the clock at that time would immediately start running again. All 7th and 8th grade games are played 10 minutes stop time with 2 overtime periods if necessary. An important note is, for all 8th grade playoff games, as many overtime periods as necessary should be played to determine a winner. Another one of the large rule changes for 2018 was instituted about 3 years ago. They stated that in 2018 there was going to be a new stick head requirement for high school players. Basically what they did is they implemented the same standard that's been used in college now for several years. Because of the burden this may have put on many families within our NJJLL area, we decided as a league that we were not going to require the new stick heads for the 2018 season. So that being said, any stick that was legal last year in 2017 is legal again in 2018. Also again, as in last year, for 2018, the 4-inch shooting string rule will only be enforced in 7th and 8th grade, but it will not be a penalty. The stick just must be removed from the game, similar to the way we enforce a stick that does not have a proper end stop on it. 6th grade and below, they can play with the stick with any shooting string arrangement. It does not matter where the shooting strings are, if they have a U pocket or a V pocket. Again, in 7th and 8th grade, if they have a violation of the 4-inch rule, they have a U pocket or a V pocket, it will not be a penalty, but the stick will be removed from the game. This is a diagram to show what the new standard of a high school stick should look like. And basically, if you were to compare the two side to side, the 3 inches at the bottom is significantly wider in the throat area of the stick, whereas up at the top of the stick, instead of being 6.5 inches, it would now be 6 inches. But again, because of the financial burden it would have put on many families, for 2018, we are not requiring players to have the new high school head. It's important to understand that officials have the authority to terminate any youth game in response to flagrant acts of unsportsmanlike behavior, including excessively rough play or the encouragement of excessively rough play by the coaches, athletes, or spectators. This is our 2018 quick reference card. These are available to all referees and also available to programs who attended a rules meeting. This is basically just a little cheat sheet of all the rules that we're going over today. Our 2018 fourth grade and third grade 10v10 one pass rule is the same as last year. To try to understand the one pass rule, understand the philosophy behind it. We did not want to make it possible for a player to pick up a ball by his goal line extended to run the length of the field to shoot and score. That is not playing good lacrosse, and that is not developing all the lacrosse players on the field. So in order to encourage better lacrosse play, it was determined that as soon as a player brings the ball for the first time into the attack box, that player is now required to attempt a pass before they can shoot on goal. So the first person to touch the ball into the attack zone, whether they run it in or whether they receive a pass from here to here, whoever is first to possess it in the attack zone cannot shoot. They must attempt a pass first. The pass does not have to be complete. In fact, any ground ball that's created eliminates the one pass provision. So if a player comes in and they touch the ball in and they bring it out, they can make the pass anywhere on their offensive side of the field. The pass does not have to be in the box. It's just after the ball's been touched in the box, somebody needs to make a pass. On the other side of that, once there's a turnover and the offense loses the ball and the defense now is in the process of clearing, if the defense does not make it to midfield before they lose the ball again and offense is coming back in, there is no new one pass requirement. On the other side, if they do cross midfield, lose the ball, and now the attacking team is crossing midfield to bring the ball back in, there is a new one pass requirement. It's important that prior to these games, the coaches and officials get together and discuss the enforcement of the one pass rule. In our third grade 7v7 small-sided field games, there is no one-pass rule due to the fact that these are small fields that often do not have midfield lines or attack boxes. The rule is called the Hippo rule, which is based off a drill run by many high school and college programs. The drill run by the high schools and colleges involves offensive players moving the ball around the offensive zone with a 3-second rule, meaning no one player can hold the ball more than 3 seconds. This is great for developing ball movement. Players simply have to catch, turn, and throw. So for third grade, what the rule states is that no one player shall hold the ball longer than 5 seconds. This is to discourage the players who may be at a higher level than their teammates in third grade from simply running around and dominating play. Players have to move the ball every 5 seconds. This should be a slow and deliberate 5 count by the officials, and this new rule should encourage better lacrosse being played at this level. Some other important league information. Coaches and/or officials cannot make any agreement to change any of our youth lacrosse rules. Home teams provide the game clock and the game timer. The timer must be an adult, and the adult must be paying full attention to the gameplay and not have a cell phone out and active while gameplay is going on. It is never appropriate for the referees to show up on a field and tell the home team that they will be keeping time today. That should only happen if the home team, comes to the officials and requests that they keep the time. Games should always start on time. At no time should officials request or force a game to start earlier than its scheduled starting time. For example, if the first game of a series ended early, it is not okay for the officials to tell the coaches that they'll be starting the next game any earlier than it's listed in Arbiter Sports. However, if there is a situation where both teams are ready to go and both coaches are ready to go, it is appropriate for the coaches to approach the officials and indicate that they are ready to go early. Next team up should be ready to go. If we are in a situation where there's a multiple game set and say the first game runs long, when that game's over, the next two teams should be ready to step on the field and start the game. It's not appropriate that that game ends late as it is, and now the referees have to go chase down the next two teams who may be still warming up on an adjacent field. So next teams up need to be ready to go. Some quick notes about payment of officials. Officials get $60 each if there are two officials on the game. They'll get $80 each if they work alone. The only time an official should work alone is in a 7v7 third grade game. So two officials will be assigned to all games 3rd through 8th grade that are 10v10. Requests for one official will not be honored. The only time you'll get one official is in a 3rd grade 7v7 game. Requests for specific officials will never be honored. Home teams may block up to 3 officials from working their games. Payment of a game officials should take place no later than halftime of the last game scheduled. The same thing if a voucher is being used and must be signed. It's not appropriate to request or require the referees to stay till after the end of the last game to receive payment. The 48-hour cancellation rule. This applies to non-weather related cancellations for games that are listed in Arbiter Sports. If there's more than 48 hours notice to a game being canceled, the officials are due no fee. We do need to say this. Anytime you're within 15 days of game day, the program themselves cannot change, cancel any game. To do that, they need permission from their local assigner. It is important that programs do their due diligence to make sure that we're not canceling games scheduled within 15 days and after officials have been assigned. Once we get in within 48 hours of game time, if a program finds it necessary to cancel a game or games for any reason other than weather, the officials must be paid for all games canceled. The home team's responsible for paying the officials, and if it was the visiting team that was responsible for the cancellations, the home team needs to get reimbursed by the visiting team. For weather-related cancellation, it's basically a 2-hour rule. So for example, if you had a 6 o'clock game, if you wanted to cancel the officials with no fee due, they need to be canceled by 4 p.m. If an official is notified with less than 2 hours of game time, they'll be due $30 each or 1/2 game fee. This fee is due whether or not the official arrives at the field. If 5 games are scheduled, only one fee of $30 is due for each assigned official. If it's scheduled for multiple games and weather causes a cancellation after one game is started, there are no further fees due the official. Once a game is started, regardless of its length, the official is due his entire game fee for that game. Proper notification for the officials includes leaving a voicemail message on their cell phone. Programs are not required to attempt to call home numbers or work numbers. But it is also not a proper notification if done via email or text message. If it's early enough in the day and you want to attempt an email or a text message to cancel the officials, if you have not gotten a response acknowledging the cancellation, it is required that you call their cell phones 2 hours prior to the cancellation to not have any fee due. Thank you for taking the time to complete this video. We encourage you to go to our website, www.njlacrosse.com, and take our 2018 rules quiz to see how much of this information you were able to retain. Thank you.